Rise and shine. It's Tuesday, May the 24th, and you're welcome to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. I'm Kayode Okikulu.
Good morning. It's good to be here again. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
I wonder what Kayode did with it. It's another beautiful Tuesday morning.
I left it for you.
Good morning. I'm Ayo Makin, and of course, you know, once we sit like this, it is time to take the papers with one of our guests. This morning, it's Wale Fatade, who is former assistant managing editor of Next newspaper and commissioning editor, The Conversation Africa. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Well, let's start off with the Nigerian Tribune. It's a busy week, Mr. Fatade. Last week was busy, but it looks like this week is the mother of all weeks.
Yeah, for those of us genuine Nigerians working, it's busy.
Okay, well, the jury's out there. Well, let's start with the Nigerian Tribune and take a look at what you find on the front page. It's about the primaries, but we're starting off with PDP's National Assembly primaries. And you see names like Autonomy, Banky W, Ango Abdullahi's son, Tegbe Ned Nwoko Larwin, sons of Fire Sheikh Kashemu, also emerged. So we're gradually building up in this whole process of primaries. And the first is, well, we've had the states as well, but this National Assembly primaries and the names being thrown up, especially for the PDP. I wonder what your thoughts are. Are you hopeful? Are you excited?
Well, I've been reporting politics in Nigeria now for about 3 decades. I'm sorry, this latest exercise does not inspire. I mean, it's same or same, if you pardon that cliche. And where someone like Banky W is exciting, not because I don't know him personally, but just raising a platform for his age, for his generation, for what the age group or the demographics. I think that's interesting. But awesome. I watched him yesterday, I think on your station, after he emerged, and I was like, is the Senate a retirement home for governors? You've been government for 8 years and you do that. So is it exactly going to be something different? And for our brother from Oyo State, Tegbe, there's actually a story behind that. And that's the senatorial seat that the current Olubadan younger brother is representing now. Is it Oyo West or Oyo Central? And you know, it was because of him that gentleman defected to APC. So it's interesting. Let's see how that plays out in the larger scheme of things in our dear Oyo State.
Particularly about these, governors going into the National Assembly. I think that has been a topic of, a controversial topic, I would imagine. So there's a thinking that, you can't stop people from aspiring, whether they were
I believe that. I'm democratic enough.
But there's
like
also
that.
the conversation about just how effective they will be.
Number one. And number two, how free and fair were those primaries that produced them? The party organ, the party machinery, as it were, for every party, where you have a sitting governor, is in the hands of the governor. Whether it's APC or PDP or APUGA, as our people say that, or APGA. So how free and fair is that election?
Well, INEC.
But I've been excited about 2-term, 3-term senators losing out, and that's interesting. That's the beauty of democracy.
Interesting. Well, INEC monitored those primaries, so we'll expect.
Follow up on that, given how the amendment to Section 84(8) of the new Electoral Act acts in the balance. Might I ask how free and fair the primaries
Well, I'll tell you that. Yesterday I was speaking with the world chairman of APC in Osun State, and I was asking him that, so are you going to vote your mind? Are you going to vote your person? I said, no, Wale, that's not going to happen now. That every ballot paper is serially marked. They can track who you vote for, and that we as a world, we as a caucus, we have decided who will be a candidate. So you can't be an outlier. You can't break the rank. So you know who you are voting for. And then you remember...
Because the elected delegates,
yes,
still determine who the elected delegates are.
And you will still get money. The governor, if you are not in the governor's caucus or in the governor's good books, you can't emerge as a delegate. It's not going to happen. And if you decide to vote against his interest, you are coming back to them.
Would it have made any difference if the members of the National Assembly could vote as statutory delegates?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Even though it's hypothetical, but we have seen it before, I don't think so. And I think they were clever by half. They shot themselves in the foot, thinking that with the president. So that's how they are no longer statutory, as it were. So I'm not sure. I think we should not expect something different from a system that is as corrupted as this, or a system that is as polluted as this? Why do we expect the political space to be different? So I think we're expecting too much from our political class. You would think they are going to do different from what is going on in Nigeria.
In fact, let me tie this next story to that statement you just made. In fact, two of them. One, too late now to sign Electoral Act amendment. Poll observers tell Buhari. That's on the one hand. So that's 84-8, that amendment that was done. So that's one. The second one is coalition of 7 political parties in alliance ahead of 2023. That's from the NC front. And you see SDP, ADC, APM dissociate selves from merger. So this was touted as a third force. And I imagine for people like you who think, well, same, let's try something new.
At what time? Elections are just less than a year away. Where is the structure? Or where are the structures? And remember again, there is a part of this Electoral Act that if your name was not on the register of that party, you cannot just defect now and contest. I hope you know that. So that has been taken care of. That if you lost out in, let's say, PDP, now you now say, okay, we'll go to that Kayode so-called third force. You can't again.
There's no Kayode's third force.
Yeah, with your third force or your so-called third force. You can't do that again now. I think if we are going to get a third force, the work should have started earlier.
But and it started about 15 months ago, if you
but then
don't forget that
where is the work?
The plan,
where is the result?
Plan, at least from what we know so far, is that they all adopt one particular political party, which is the Labour Party in this case. So everyone is expected to join.
But have you ever watched a jingle of Labour Party on your station? Do you know where Labour Party headquarters is?
These are grassroots mobilized. I mean, you can't rule out
I stayed in Oshodi Solo, and I know I've never seen anything Labour Party.
Well, you know that a day is a long time in politics.
In politics, yes, we know. But then, if you have not started at it now, you can't even leave a scratch on the behemoth of the other major forces.
We'll talk about that.
You want to leave, don't talk of a dent or a crash.
Mr. Fatade, you are not a politician. So.
No, I'm not. But I study politics, and I know those who practice them. And you can see the work. You see, the political action cannot be hidden. You will know it. And I think, based on what we know of Nigeria, I'm not sure any force can take care of these two behemoths.
Just for mention, all this politics and all of that is essentially meant to ensure that we have good governance, right?
Definitely, that's the objective.
There's something just disheartening on top of the nameplate. I'll mention this before we move on to the next paper. 19.4 million Nigerians to face food crisis by August. So that's 2 months from now, or let's say 3 months from now, essentially. And that's coming from the ECOWAS. So amidst all of the back and forth, the primaries, there's a very present crisis, food crisis. And you know what they say about food. If it's a big deal, if it's a major problem, then you can't just predict what people will do. So that's on page 4 of the Nigerian Tribune. And I'll leave you there for the paper.
All right. From the Nigerian Tribune, let's move to leadership newspapers this morning. And there's a story that will catch your fancy. And I hope it does catch your fancy too, Mr. Fatade. APC, it's a big story. APC presidential flag bearer Ogbonnaya Onu may be Buhari's dark horse. Now, so many names have been touted. We've heard from Kaduna that
I had a discussion with someone who I believe should know just yesterday evening, early evening, and he was touting another person as this same so-called dark horse for APC. And he gave a clincher, which I think might be it. He said, "Have I ever seen this person campaigning?" And I said, "That's true. He's not been meeting delegates. He's been going nowhere." He said, "That's the idea. So that when things happen, the president will just raise his hand and say, 'This is my consensus candidate.'" But I think in newsrooms now, stories should have been prepared now for consensus. I think that might be that's most likely going to happen in APC.
Is that why you think they're delaying the screening?
That's my thought. I don't have any facts, but just mere reading of the situation.
Or is it because that's what's been the style, if I can use the term, over time?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's where the pendulum is going to swing.
But considering that the president's position on who his anointed candidate would be, he's decided to keep mum on it, would the president's anointed candidate be visible in your face like so many of the aspirants that we've seen?
No, that's the last stage. And then if he emerges, or he or she emerges, I think there will be nothing left for the other candidates again. And remember, with that other annex or annexure that was on the nomination form, that created a kind of kerfuffle that you have to sign this. I think APC might be fitting towards consensus.
But don't forget, there's the provision for consensus in the Electoral Act.
Definitely.
All the aspirants must agree to it. And if they don't, they have to go to the polls.
Let's look back at historical antecedent. We saw that during the party officers' election.
No, that's
you saw people coming to the stage crying, literally
that's
weeping.
A different ball game. I mean, you're talking
by
about
the same set of actors.
No, different actors actually. The people that aspire to be party officials are different from the people aspiring.
But who are the people determining the fate?
Candidates.
Who are the people determining the fate of these guys?
That's one side of the story. The other side is the aspirants themselves. I mean,
which is a bigger election.
But have you not heard so many of the aspirants saying that they will abide by the party? They will follow the party's.
I hope I'm wrong. They say naturally.
I wish
I'm a party man, but
I wish I'm wrong. But I think our democracy is being weakened if everything is by consensus. Part of the beauty is seeing people losing the election. Part of the beauty is seeing people aspiring 4 or 5 years or about 3 election cycles before you get it. But I'm not sure we're going to get that with APC.
But considering the names we're hearing, we're hearing former Minister of Transportation Amechi from Kaduna. We're hearing, we don't even know who's naming the former president's name, Goodluck Jonathan, and now Ogbonnaya Onu. Does it look to you like the APC is deciding to go down south?
That might be left for colleagues who are on the field. So this is just me pontificating. I think the two major guys or parties, they are watching each other, APC and PDP. And that's why you see the kind of drama. I think if one party goes north, the other will go north. If one party goes south, the other might go south. That's what I think. Yeah.
By the way, I just want to quickly touch on this, pardon me. This talk about the president's anointed candidate, does that really hold a lot of water? Does that mean that whoever the president says, well, is my candidate, will be Nigeria's next president?
Well, you and I will still have to vote. But you could have just stopped your question at, does that mean the fellow will be a BC presidential candidate? And I say yes.
No, that's why I took it all the way.
No, we don't know that because we believe that INEC will be fair. We believe that Nigerians will still get to make a choice. Okay. But I think it stops at that fellow being the APC presidential candidate, and I think so.
Should we push this a little further?
Please tip the envelope.
If some aspirants don't have their way, do you see another surprise in another third force?
Where is the person? And we'll move around Nigeria, and does he get the cash or the money to do that this time? I don't think so.
Okay. Let's look at the Vanguard
I wish
newspaper.
That should be the case.
Let's look at the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, guys. You remember you were talking about delegates, control, and role. This will be the other time. The Vanguard newspaper has an interesting angle to it. Electoral Act. Governors lament fear inability to control delegates. So that's what's on the front page now of the Vanguard newspaper. Maybe the writers will give us some inkling. Aspirants shun consensus, devise fresh strategies to woo delegates. Delegates to be housed, shielded from opponents, driven to venue on D-Day.
Wow.
Saudis not working on any consensus arrangements, ascribed to Wajuba. APC Southwest consensus candidate not in view, ascribed to a source. We're optimistic of a consensus, Ajulo PLO convener, why Tinubu remains best. That's ascribed to Shetima. Okay. That's all of your consensus
in the mud. As they say, consensus in the mud.
Maybe in the sky.
There is this English saying, a leopard does not change its spot. I really wish Nigerian politicians would suddenly have a new genetic variation or genetic mutation and suddenly become different. But no, all these are postures for the public. What do they do in-house? What do they do? These are people who dance forward and dash backward. I'm not so sure. And you could see governor was already lamenting because whatever it is, as I said earlier, and we know, they remain a potent force in all the parties. Because as a matter of fact, they are the ones that fund these parties.
So why are they lamenting, according to this headline?
Yeah, because I've not read the story. So we don't know what their lamentation might be. Maybe they don't have the kind of firm grip they thought they would have. But if you look at the primaries of PDP so far, there is no governor that has been caught flat-footed. Yeah, so far, based on the results that we have. All the candidates the governors want have emerged. So.
Okay. Well, let's leave it that. Let's leave that at that. Right below the pictures you see on the front page of the paper this morning, 36 governors lose suit against financial autonomy for LGA. Stories on page 7. You know, Well, this started how many years ago now? Since 2019?
18, yeah.
Okay.
I think it was not the suit by the National Finance Intelligence Unit.
Yes.
No. Suit by the governors against the FG and
Okay,
NFIU.
it was the governor.
The other way around.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm not so sure that will stand scrutiny at the higher court. Because in the federation, there are two units, federating, state and federal. But I think where the governors might run into an issue is because the local governments are actually part of the constitution.
774.
774. They are part of the constitution. So with that, I think the governors might lose eventually with that. But that's against the tenets of federalism. There are only two units. So it's up to each state.
When you say there are only two units, why then do we have local governments in the constitution if there are only two units?
No, you should have that. I mean, look at the U.S. for instance. Now you have the counties government. So they are there, but it's left to the states to determine the number of counties that you want to have. That has nothing to do with. I mean, why would somebody, a senator from Kano, determine the number of local governments in my home state of Osun? It's antithetical. You don't know us. Yeah, it's the same way whereby you post a commissioner of police from Zamfara to your state. No.
The fact that the local governments are named in the constitution still
is aberration.
Still makes us have two units in your own view.
No, it's three now because they are already in the constitution, but that's an aberration. The true tenets of federalism states that the nation state, the national, and the federating unit, which is the state. Local government, you can't determine the number of local government a state should have. But because we give allocation every month, that's part of the issue.
But do you know that the allocation goes to federal, state, and local government?
That's what I'm saying. It's because of that part of the issue.
Okay.
Because if you look at Switzerland, you look at the United States, you look at Canada, you pay certain amount as royalty or taxes to the national government. Nobody tells you whether the bitumen, the oil, the coal, how do you spend that?
Sounds like you're asking for a restructure, but don't go there right now.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Let's not run out of ourselves because there's so much to dig out of that.
Yeah, we'll get to that stage, definitely.
Well, Mr. and Mrs., very quickly before we go to the next paper, Mrs. stands in front of Mr. seated with his newspaper open, says to Mr., "My hair is due for retouching. I'm supposed to visit the salon every week." And Mr. with his face on his paper says, "Is that what the doctor prescribed?"
Valid question.
That's well, don't forget there is a Mrs. here.
I know. My wife do.
Excuse me, Mr. knew this full well before
plunging ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, just like Mr. I'm focusing on my paper. The Guardian newspaper is next. No distractions. That's the doctor's prescription for me. And this is what you find right there on the front page of The Guardian. 2023 presidency. APC to screen prune number of aspirants. Fire only 5 aspirants are serious. Wajuba backs party on controversial letter of withdrawal. Ohaneze Ndigbo upbeat about Igbo producing next president. Let me just add this to it, Mr. Fatah. Now, well, lots of things have happened since that particular one. So the APC governors had a meeting overnight, literally, and they're meant to meet with the president. There was this conflicting, signal whether or not the screening will hold today. We had the national organizer
saying
twice, saying it will hold today. Then we had the national publicity secretary saying, well, it's still been postponed. We don't know yet. But looks like the governors are meeting already. They've come out of that meeting and they're meant to now meet the president. So maybe again your consensus is out of that mud.
Well, I hope I'm wrong. But just from we are watching political events in Nigeria, I'm watching the president, who would have discovered that always all these cards close to his chest, a beautiful military tactician or strategist. I think APC is tilting towards consensus. And remember, see one aspirant already saying there's nothing wrong with it. Now, are you sure that the meeting between the president and the governor, I'm just saying this hypothetically, is just that, so guys, go and convince your people to stand down. This is where we are going. And then as long as their interests are taken care of, are you not? Is there anything stopping any governor now emerging as a running mate?
You see.
But then how does the party now manage the consequences arising as a result?
They have been corralled
there will be a lot of disaffection.
When Adamu emerged as the chairman, what happened? Those who said they will not sit down with somebody who emerged as national secretary, are they not moving together now?
They're not just sitting down, they're moving
They
together.
are moving together.
Well, our correspondent, Dela Moyeni, who's actually keeping tabs at that venue, says that so the governors are expected to meet with the president, then afterwards the aspirants will then meet with the president.
So it is the president's decision and their own resolution they will convey to the aspirants.
Interesting. A couple of other stories right there. I mean, it's important that we're talking about this so Nigerians can pay
because
attention.
we will now see that what we have is a charade. What we have is not really democratic at that level.
Consensus is an electoral act.
Yeah.
In any case. So, I mean, whether or not it's a charade is another thing entirely. But let me just mention this one. No safe place for criminals to operate in Anambra, says Soludo. Anambra has been at the receiving end of some...
Professor Soludo really has my sympathies. And I'm sure to his chagrin now, he would have discovered that appeasement does not work. Yeah. And I really feel for him. Because you could see the beautiful... I listened to his inaugural address or inauguration address. I followed his campaign, and I could see that he really wanted to work. But when there is insecurity, you can't do much.
But is that to say that we're not talking to the right sets of people in Anambra State or in the Southwest to ensure that we get the kind of security that we should have?
I think the problem has snowballed beyond what we all thought before. And some of the people have been shouting before that it will get to this stage. But I think we all pretended. It's huge. And I could not shake myself off that macabre show of beheading somebody, hanging the head, and putting a note there. That's sad.
But there are those, my apologies, Bukola. There are those who are wondering exactly what the issue is. Is it insecurity? Is it economic? Is it political?
I was thinking about that as I was coming here this morning, and I was thinking that if I'm actually protesting, then take the battle to those who think they are your enemies. Why must you use that to wound your own part of your bodies or part of your own people? And I still don't know that what exactly is the issue. How Nigeria, and that's the mistake we made when the Boko Haram stuff started. I do not think IPOB is just a Southeast problem any longer. I think it's all of us Nigerians to look critically into it.
So it is hydra-headed, it's beyond the agitation for self-determination in the Southeast.
And I've said here, not once, not twice, I love one Nigeria, but I believe that those who do not want to go with the rest of us, let them leave. So I don't have a problem with that. But I love the beauty of the country as it is. The south, the east, the north, the west. But you don't force people to stay with you. So if you are really agitating for that, it's why are we at this level?
Okay. Well, that's the Guardian this morning.
And from the Guardian, let's take a quick look at News Director. It's pretty same story from the other papers. 36 governors lose suit to federal government on local government financial autonomy. NFIU to report all transactions on local government joint accounts to ICPC, EFCC. That's attributed to Tukur. Let's look at the top corner. APC primaries, anxiety in ruling party as NWC adjusts elections timetable again, approves state, local government areas delegates to vote. Perhaps another aspect of this story that we should look at is, the deadline for election primaries to be conducted given by INEC as against...
I think it's this weekend.
Yeah, as against APC's postponement. What are the implications of this?
No, they will drag each other across the finish line. They will do that. But you remember, they called twice or three times. And Festus Okoye and I think Mahmoud, the INEC chair, the two of them separately had to come out that there is no extension. So they know they are not getting extension.
So June 3rd is June 3rd?
Definitely. You could see that. The INEC has said that twice.
Yeah. I guess we wait. Beg your pardon. New Telegraph has this one, New Telegraph on its front page. APC presidential screening, Adamu still consulting key stakeholders.
I've never seen that when I was pontificating my own pontificate. You can see, what are you consulting for?
Well,
it's just to corral everybody into line.
No, the writers give you a little inkling.
Okay.
To work out modalities of president's meeting with aspirants, governors, leadership of national assembly.
Did you see again? Is there a meeting? with aspirants.
It's not bad to meet.
Not at all, especially with the president of Nigeria. Yes. And if the president invites, you met the president. If the president invites me too, I will meet with him.
I've not met the president, Mr. Fatale.
Just you did
to
not,
put it on record.
You did not
I mean, if there's anything we do more, it's meetings. Have some consultations and show that.
And then after that, you review that meeting again. You do another meeting.
Mr. Fatale.
Okay. Well, right below the picture you see on the front page, presidential ticket. PDP tilts towards northeast. Atiku, Bala Mohammed tipped. Obasanjo meets Wike, Makinde, Autumn. Story is on
and Donald Duke.
Oh, well.
Duke was at the meeting, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was.
Interesting. Well, you're an editor, you would know. And
that's a rider to the rider.
Yeah, Duke was there.
2023, Emefiele withdraws suit against INEC AGF. Ajilo writes, Buhari says only Osinbajo, 2 other APC aspirants eligible. Story on pages 4 and 5 of the paper. You're comfortable with that, I'm sure.
Yeah, Mr. Ajilo is in Professor Osinbajo's camp, so he's just marketing his candidate or his aspirant. Okay. So there's no big deal.
Well, that's the papers this morning and a look at it. Thank you so much for being a part of it, Mr. Wale Fatade. Thank you for being a part of our program this morning.
My pleasure.
Okay. So we take a short break and we plunge into the issues as they come. Please stay with us. For a quick understanding of what are the implications of the indefinite postponement of the APC presidential, screening process and all of that, let's have a quick one with Professor Paul Ananaba, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria, joins us virtually. Thanks for joining us this morning, Prof. Now, the concern a number of people would have, I don't know if it's a concern for you as well, does this have any implications whatsoever on the electoral process, the timeline INEC has set, and all of that?
Yes. It's something that is worrisome for anyone who has in the affairs of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. INEC had clearly stated that it is constitutionally bad that INEC is an umpire, and that's why I keep emphasizing the word independent in INEC, Independent National Electoral Commission. They have stated that every political party will have June 3rd as the last date to submit their candidates. So, political parties have had all the time. They gave notice within the constitutional period. And we are here today, May 24. These screenings are part of what political parties will do if they are serious that they are going to hold elections.
But Prof, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, now you now see between now and 3rd of June, you know how many days are there. Why the focus on APC? Perhaps because they're the ruling party and they have 28 candidates on there. So how will you screen and handle the fallouts of the screening and ensure stability in the process? So it is something that is worrisome because it's the ruling party. We want to believe that there is that commitment that the elections will go as scheduled. You will recall that a few days ago that IPAC had asked INEC to move the dates. And INEC has said, no, we're not going to move the dates. You will also recall that when the IPAC leader was being questioned by your crew, the man said, INEC will move the dates.
Yeah, but
So
even on that, my apologies. Yes. On that, I mean, because when you talked about APC, being the one, as one would say, at the forefront, so to speak, because they are the ruling party, it means it's not only the APC that is interested or, would expect a postponement of the process by INEC. Yeah. IPAC, you have also mentioned, is there. So one is wondering exactly what you think is likely to play out here. Is it safe for our democracy, or is it something that you think we should be a little more concerned about?
Well, politics, this is a question of politics and law. The law is that INEC will dictate. INEC has said when the election. It is only if INEC begins to vacillate that will get some worry. Political parties know how they play their politics. They can move it because of political considerations, because at the moment you will see that APC and PDP are busy looking at each other to know who will blink first in these primaries. And the screening comes before the primaries. Now, if PDP goes north, you will know that APC would like to go north. If PDP goes south, you know that APC want to go south. If APC goes north, you know PDP will want to go north. If APC goes south, you know that PDP will want to go south. So it is cat and mouse thing. I thought that all the parties will do their screenings within time and possibly fix their presidential primaries at the same time, on the same day, so that we will not get a predetermined candidate. And it will be done and it will be done. But politics is a different thing. There are a series of things that we consider. But I don't think Nigeria should worry. That's the point I'm making. Why? It is only the one political party or the other political party that is shifting they can decide to have consensus candidates. They can decide to do it as a family affair. But the point is that INEC must remain independent and firm. If INEC moves or vacillates because of these changes by one or two political parties, or even IPAC, then there should be cause for concern, because it means that there may be no end to alterations based on the demands of convenience of one party or the other.
Professor Nanaba, you've said it twice now, or you suggested it twice. You emphasized on independence at the beginning, and then you talked about the possibility of moving the deadline for political consideration. Are you foreseeing that, or do you think that INEC's independence may be on the line? And if indeed it is on the line and it is the deadline is moved, would it be anything new in our political landscape?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, some political parties have already started their primaries. Candidates are already emerging in some political parties. Take, for example, I think PDP did primaries last weekend. And so you cannot change the rules midstream. Those are the things that bring issues in the political process. I don't think INEC will move. I have confidence in what INEC has been doing. INEC has shown to a large extent this independence, I can say that. Because when IPAC came with that suggestion, INEC said, no, we're not going to move. And they've insisted and stayed on it. And candidates are already emerging. So also is the Electoral Act.
A quick one.
These candidates that emerged last weekend emerged based on the existing Electoral Act.
Okay.
So you cannot change these things midstream.
All right, Prof, we have just about 30 seconds or thereabout. In the event that, for whatever reason, INEC considers and indeed moves the date by whatever length of time, what are the implications for you?
The implication is that what INEC says will be valid because constitutionally and statutorily they have the right. But beyond the law, it will affect the confidence in the electoral system, because when the animal cries in the night and the child dies in the day, it means that from the training I got at home in my village, we now know that something will be wrong. You will now know that. That's why I was talking about independence, that this independence may not really be independent because we already knew where the call was coming and the call was emphatic, and that's what will happen. So if going forward 6 months away, another call comes, INEC should do this, that will be what, then that is not my understanding of independence.
Okay. Professor Paul Ananaba, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, thank you so much for throwing a little light on that for us this morning.
Thank you.
Well, we began the program by, with what Kayode said, there are so many issues in the news, and one of them is concerning the local government autonomy issue as ruled by a Federal High Court just yesterday. We'll be back.
It is always an interesting conversation, but more importantly, controversial, a big debate. In fact, it had to go all the way to the Federal High Court just to get some sort of decision on this. Don't forget that guideline was issued by NFIU as far back as 2019. 2022, we're still trying to find a way out of this local government autonomy or what have you. And this morning, we're going to be telling you the implications of yesterday's judgment. And to do that with us, as you've seen, we have three gentlemen. Joining us here in our Lagos studio is Mr. Matthias Meribe, who is a constitutional lawyer, as well as in our Abuja studio, Dr. Adiya Ode, who is a convener, Democracy Vanguard. That's the woman. So two gentlemen and a woman. Just saved by the bell right there. I see she's smiling. And of course, joining us virtually is Comrade Ali Olatunji, who is the National President, National Union of Local Government Employees, NOLGE. Gentlemen and lady, thank you for joining us this morning. I'd like to begin with Comrade Olatunji, just to help us understand what this means. A lot of people may have forgotten the 2019 guideline, what it stipulates, and now what this judgment does to that guideline. So help us understand the background, especially with this latest judgment.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to Nigerians, because this is a major leap. What happened was that after the passage of that guideline by the NFIU, the body of governors, that the governors forum, went to court to initiate an action against federal government. That guideline that says that joint account allocation committee created by Section 162 should only be a transit basket which means money revenue from federation account, money revenue from state account should be put into that basket for onward transmission to the local government. But what we have realized long time ago is that anytime this money comes into that basket, the state governors using the Ministry of Local Government and Chieftaincy always initiate action directly spending the money without the approval or the constitutional backup by the Constitution. And that has also created massive poverty in the land. And the judgment, when the case was ongoing, Norgay, as an interested party, joined the suit as a joinder. We joined the federal government against the state governors because we know that the money coming into that account, because it was diverted, pilfered, and misapplied, has also brought a lot of hardship on local government workers, thereby resulting in lack of payment of local government workers, lack of ability for local government to carry out infrastructural development and day-to-day activities as a development center. So the government has come to affirm that though the concern created by Section 162 created Joint Account Allocation Committee, the governors has no power under the law to initiate direct spending from that account. That what the account meant by the data of the Constitution is to collect revenue to that basket for onward transmission to local government. It is local government that has power to administer the fund according to law. And again, the law has also guideline affirmed that to prevent vulnerability and abuse of financial process, local government should not be able to withdraw more than 500,000 from that account daily unless that electronic e-payment system applied. What this meant is that no governor will be able to ask local government to bring out money from that account by signing just a paper saying that we are undertaking this project on your behalf, which does not conform with the budget process and procedure of each local government. So I say congratulations to Nigeria because it's a major leap towards achievement of financial autonomy for local government. Thank you.
Well, there will always be questions about whether or not the 36 state governors aren't Nigerians as well. I imagine, are you saying congratulations to them? But let's try to dissect the legal angles, Comrade. And I have to come to Mr. Merbe in our studio here. I recall the head of the chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum, Governor Kayode Fayemi. He's been asked questions about this time and again. And one of the responses he gave is that there's no law currently in Nigeria on local government autonomy, as it were. And he says essentially, this is not fair. What are your thoughts, especially from the legal perspective? What are the laws that guide this sort of autonomy when it comes to disbursements, having joint accounts? Help us understand the legal angle.
Thank you very much. I'll start by saying that under the Constitution, it is the state that has the power to create local government. Now, the import of that is that it vests them with the power, more or less, to administer them in line with the provisions of the Constitution. Now, when a law, or should I say a guideline of this nature, comes from the federal government to the state, to the local government, or concerning the local government, with all due respect, I see it as a conflict. In other words, it's like the federal government having to intrude into the affairs of the local government, bearing in mind that local government is a creation of the state government. Now, in a constitutional democracy, particularly where we talk about federal system of government, we only recognize two tiers positionally. And what are these two here? We are talking of the federal government and the federating units, which are the states. Now, and that you will recognize, see, going back to the Constitution, you discover that in dealing with the concept of federal and state, go, for instance, check Section 4, Section 5, Section 4, Section 5, and Section 6. It clearly states, particularly, the legislature the executive, and the judiciary. In these three provisions, so to say, the content is telling you what the federal government will have and what the state government will have. It did not provide for the local government. Now, what you will have is that it's like the constitution only, by way of contemplation, okay, let us have something that will create an administrative convenience for purposes of the state so that to come down to the grassroots. But that is not to say that it has by itself or fully recognized or created local government as a third tier, because it does not have all of this machinery which I just mentioned that you have in the state. Just like, for instance, in the local government, you have like entities like Attorney General. In the state, you have it.
Just to be clear, when you said that the local government is a creation of the state,
yes,
when it comes to creating local governments,
yes,
it is not the states that create local governments.
No, it's the states. By the constitution, the states are empowered to create local government. But it's just that the federal government, by way of the National Assembly, can only give recognition to it.
But the
creation, understand the language, creation.
What is the creation without recognition or without backing
the recognition, listen, it's like, let me give you an example. It's like when the FCC chairman was appointed. The law requires that who appoints the FCC chairman is the president.
But states cannot unilaterally
who approves for him to become the chairman, it is what? The National Assembly. But that does not mean, that is why when they create it, they become people that will be enacting capacity.
The same constitution.
Using what happened in Lagos State when Tinubu created some local government councils, so to say. When the constitution, because remember, it was on that basis that Obasanjo withdrew funds from the local. But what was it that the Supreme Court said? You cannot do that. So they are only living in what? Inequity. Inequity. That is what we call in law an inequity. Inequity, it is a body that is recognized, that has been created. It is there. But in law, you require what? The blessing, the approval.
So in other words, you are saying that the Constitution gives with one hand and holds back with another.
That is why I said that is where you have the conflict.
Okay, let's understand, very quickly. Dr. Ode, I mean, all of this conversation is going on, and then there's been a lot of agitation for this local government autonomy thing and all of that, which was perhaps one of the things that the NFIU guidelines attempted to do, which is to protect the independence or finances of the local government. What for you are the implications of this judgment of the court in the light of the recommendations by the Constitutional Review Committee for local government autonomy financially and administratively?
Thank you very much. Before I start, let me join Comrade Ambali to congratulate Nigerians on that judgment. The implications are far-reaching, and what it does is that it supports the agitations for local government autonomy. It underlines the fact that that agitation is valid, and it underlines the fact that administration of local governments needs some sanity. The NFIU issued those guidelines because it recognized vulnerabilities in the processes concerning the funds of local governments. And it's those vulnerabilities that we want to take away, that we are agitating to take away, and that the National Assembly has so well recommended in the bills that they passed and sent to the states. As long as those vulnerabilities exist, the people of Nigeria will not get their dues because the local governments will be held back by the governors. It's no surprise that the governors went to court. And it's no surprise, I'm sure, to the NFIU and to onlookers that they want to get things to continue as usual, because that's where all the challenges we're having with financing at the local government level is coming from. So it's really heartwarming to see the judge throughout that case, and it's encouraging as well. And my hope is that it sends a signal to the members of the Houses of Assembly that what they are being asked to do in passing the bills that have been sent to them that will grant local government autonomy is the right thing.
So I'm a little...
The learned gentleman pointed out some...
Go ahead, please.
Okay, sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. The learned gentleman pointed out this, some discontinuities in the Constitution. And hopefully, when those bills are passed, those blind spots, those loopholes will be taken away, and we can say confidently that the local government council, the local government executives, have full responsibility for the funding that is allocated to them. That they generate.
Yeah, I'm always a little befuddled every time we talk about this local government thing, when we say there are only 2 tiers recognized by the Constitution because of the provisions that, you know, Mr. Meribe has mentioned here. Because the Houses of Assembly have supervisory role over the local governments in the same Constitution. So I'm wondering why that is an issue. Why is it that the challenges of the local governments have remained as they are when there are specific functions for the local government to perform? Is that to say then that the Houses of Assembly have not really been performing their roles before we got to this stop where we are?
The truth is that the guardrails that have been provided by the Constitution are not functional because the Constitution itself takes away those guardrails. So if we have the Houses of Assembly who have oversight function over the local governments, who controls the Houses of Assembly? The governors, the same governors who went to court over the NFIU guidelines, because the Houses of Assembly have hitherto had to go to the governors for their funding and everything else. The governor is the leader of the party in the state. The members of the Houses of Assembly, the way that our democracy is structured, have to lean on the governor to get their tickets. And if you fall out of favor, then you're done for in your political career. And so, of course, the incentives for them to do the right thing and provide that oversight function are very few. They're really not there at all. And it's the same thing even in their oversight function over the other parts of governance in the state. And so what we need to do, I mean, the Constitution is as it is, but we are not at the end of the development of our nation. And that's why the opportunities are there to amend the Constitution. And we should take advantage of those opportunities to evolve to a system that works best for us. We are not at the end of the journey. And so this is why we should take the opportunity now. We have all observed where the loopholes are. So this opportunity that's presented to tighten the Constitution and take away all the contradictions with regards to local government. If we pass the bills, then those contradictions will be taken away. The judgment has been passed by the court, but that is this administration. What happens in the next administration? What happens if they go to a higher court? So we need to ensure that the Constitution, which is the bedrock of our democracy, is tight and provides for sanity in administering the public finances at the local government level.
Dr. Ode, we need to go to break now, but there are still questions about whether or not this is the route to the restructuring people have clamored for, ensuring that we have stronger subnationals and other units. But that's when we return from this break. We'll also, of course, speak with Comrade Olatunji as well as Mr. Meribe right here in our studio. This gets even more interesting, so please stay with us. Welcome back. Let's continue this conversation with Comrade Olatunji of Nolge. And Comrade, I'd like to take this excerpt from Governor Kayode Fayeme's interview, which he had some time ago about this NFIU guideline. And this is what he had to say, that there is no law that has been passed in the country on local government autonomy. There have been several attempts, but it has never gotten 24 state houses of assembly out of the 36 in the country to make it happen. That is a process. Currently, Nigeria is a two-tier federation. It is not a three-tier federation. And it says talks about Nigeria being a three-tier federation is a distortion. So, again, I'll put the question I put to Mr. Merbe to you. In terms of the laws, the Constitution, where can we say, okay, this is where it talks about local government autonomy, and we're holding on to this as at least our leverage?
Thank you very much. From section 7, 1, 2, 3. It clearly mentioned local government. That is number one. But put the administrative control of local government and control under the State House Assembly. That is number one. Number two, under section 162, talking about Joint Account Allocation Committee, local government was specifically mentioned. Number three, local government were listed in the Constitution as 774 units. That is why no state government can unilaterally create local government. I disagree with the Learned Counsel there. What he has said may not be entirely correct, because this has been the lame excuses by the Forum of Governments. Number 4, under Schedule 4 of the Constitution, local government collectible revenues were clearly listed. So if a constitution as porous as another constitution is mention local government in 4 specific sections, and you are saying it's not a tier of government, what is local government? You see, in a case between the federal government, the state governors, Forum of State Governors versus the federal government on issue of direct funding of security fund, the Supreme Court upheld that they cannot deduct money. It is illegal for that government for federal government to deduct money directly and put it into that consolidated security fund because it's not a federative unit. But there is never a Supreme Court judgment that says that local government cannot be directly funded. And when you look at the way Federation Account Allocation Committee appropriate money, it is clear each local government has a specific amount of fund attached to each local government, not to the state government. The scenario can be likened to this. My father has 2 wives. One by constitution, they are saying is legal wife. The other one, my father married that one according to traditional rights. And when my father died, he did a will in the family. He listed how to appropriate his, how to distribute his wealth. And he mentioned the other son had by that woman through a traditional wedding, and that he's entitled to this. And the first one, because his mother is the first legitimate wife, now says that son is a legal son. Can then what he's saying supersede what my father's will has said? That is clearly no. And look at what is the inducement. Why is the governor this desperate? It's because of the local government fund and the way the local government is run presently. Can we say it has positively impacted on Nigerians as a masses? The government is about the common good of Nigerian people. And again, laws are meant for people, not the vice versa. I've just returned from African Summit, whereby all municipal councils in the world, in Africa, came together. And we realized Nigeria is the worst off in terms of appropriating fund and usage of local government fund. And that is why there's massive insecurity in the country. There's massive poverty, there's joblessness.
Pardon me, comrade. So I just need to bring this perspective in.
Second leg of the question. Excuse me. The second leg of the question is that we have had various attempts before. It has been frustrated. Not that the attempt failed, because the last amendment, so many states did not even debate the amendment. Not that they refused to pass it. 7 states passed it, 2 states rejected it. Others didn't even touch it because of coercion.
And I think that's the part where it's been said that we need to tighten the Constitution. Pardon me, comrade, let me just bring this other perspective in, because you said that it's essentially because, you know, the governors want to have at least the share of the local government's funds or the wealth of the local government. But another point that has been made is that when you look at then the balance of things, this is essentially weakening the states at the expense of the federal government at the end of the day. So eventually we don't have a balance. So what you have is a very weak federating system. So can you also factor that in? Don't you think this also puts us in that precarious position where we have a stronger federal government and a weak state?
It doesn't. It doesn't. Right from the federal government, the evolution of power must be in favor of where people reside. You and I reside in the local government. Can you say you are happy with your local government as of today? You have become a local government on your own. You have to provide your own generator. You have to provide your own borehole. You have to provide your own your road in your area. You have to finance your pupils at that level. If democracy is for the people, by the people, and for the better benefit of the people, we must not allow this to continue. We must make Nigeria to work. And that is why what Justice has done is to affirm the sovereignty of the people over government. Because sovereignty belongs to the people, not the government. What we need to do now is to make sure that local government will devote more power to local government, so that over-concentration of power at the state center should be reduced. Because when you talk about insecurity, it is more predominant in the rural roots, in the local government. When you talk about poor GDP, it is in the local government. When you talk about joblessness, it's in the local government. In fact, it is so what that companies located in the locality, the local community does not benefit from it. The corporate social responsibility of those companies are now zero because they go to the state government. State government should have limited role to play. Federal government must have limited role to play. We must concentrate power at the local government level, deepening democracy and good governance at that level. Once we are able to do that, it should be a bottom-up approach in governance and administration, not top-bottom approach we are having. For example, the federal government...
Your points have been rightly taken, particularly the one you made before this one, where you disagreed with Mr. Meribe, that indeed the Constitution guarantees you know, the structure, the local government structure, which is why I want us to take a second look at the judgment of Justice Ekwo. Mr. Meribe, Justice Ekwo says he's unable to see how the NFIU guidelines contradict Section 7 of the Constitution. I want us to take a second look at Section 7 of the Constitution. Where is it now? It gives the National Assembly, basically it guarantees the structure of the local government, but then the existence of the structure of the local government is in the hands of the state, both financing and elections. Doesn't this, how do you see, how do you tie back both?
Thank you very much. That was why I said, although at the moment, because of the judgment that has been given, it remains the law of the land. But I want to imagine how it will be enforced, so to speak. Bearing in mind that which of the chairmen of the local government will have the lever to give effect to this judgment, taking into consideration the overbearing influence of the state governors per se. Now, what...
Do you think the governors are overbearing?
With all due respect, we all know these are facts. They are very clear.
Could the judgment have been more categorical?
That's why I said, because the judgment, with all due respect to the learned justice of the Federal High Court, you know, the position was that it cannot see from the provisions therein cited, that is Section 7, 163, Schedule 4, I mean 162, and then Schedule 4, 162.6, and then Schedule 4, where it conflicts with, you know, where Section 3 and Section 7 of the NFIU guideline conflicts with those provisions. I think, with the greatest respect, there must be a holistic. It's not only just to look at it only based on those provisions cited therein, you know. My take, and I've said it clearly, is that if the Constitution had come out clear concerning creation of local government per se as a third tier of government, I would not have any problem, because it would have made provision, just like what I mentioned earlier. When you have Section 4, when you talk about federal, you talk about state, you equally talk about local government. You don't find that there. In other words, Section 4, dealing with the legislature, deals with only the state, I mean federal, and what? The state, and it ends here. You go to Section 5, which is executive, with only the federal and the state, it ends there. Section 6, which is the judiciary, the federal and the state, it ends there.
But then there is Section 7, which talks about the creation of the local government.
Section 7 says there shall be a democratically elected local government.
So that means the structure of the local government is in the hand of the state.
What's the meaning of that?
Excuse me. There's a difference between an intention to have something and also having that thing in its full. It's an intention. It's like an experiment. Constitution is saying, let us experiment this and see how it's going to work.
I don't see the word experiment in that section.
No, I said it's like an experiment. That's why there's an intention.
Let me quote it verbatim. The system of local government by democratically elected government councils is under this constitution guaranteed.
Yes.
And accordingly, the government of every state shall, subject to Section 8 of the Constitution, ensure their existence under a law which provides for the establishment, structure, composition, finance, and functions of such councils.
So it's in the hand of the state.
Which means, yes, you can see that it's clearly in the hands of the state with respect to even the finance for them to do that. Not from the federal come and tell them how their finances will be run. But having said that, the language, yes, he said it shall be guaranteed. And every state shall ensure its existence. Are you getting what I'm saying? Now, for me, like I said, while Section 7 and 8, of course, have that, that's why I said it's an intention to say let it exist. I would have expected that the Constitution would have gone further, in just like what it did concerning the state and the federal. Because there's no two ways. I mean, to tell you that there must be this government, he said, there shall be the legislature of the state, and they now started telling you, how do you impeach the chairman, the governor, how do you impeach the executive, the president, and so on and so forth. All these things were spelled out by the Constitution. But you cannot have that, you don't have the issue of how you take away the chairman of the local government, chairman of the local government. It's not in the Constitution. Now, these are some of the indices that tells you that this is what I want you to have and nothing more. So it's one thing to say that it has been guaranteed. It's another thing to have it there.
So how do you see this proposed amendment by the National Assembly and the State Houses of Assembly concurring? How do you see it playing out? Do you think it will solve this problem you're raising?
Let me tell you. You know, we play politics of psychophancy. Let me just put it that way. Some people want to be correct only because of it's a populist view, not because in their heart of heart they are convinced that that position is right or correct. Now, some people may be afraid to take the position that I'm taking now because it's not a popular position. But I'm saying with the greatest respect that when you check and look at the Constitution in its clear terms, you will discover that, as far as I'm concerned, NFI, why was that provision the guideline? Why didn't it affect the state? Why didn't it affect the federal? Why should it be to the local government?
So you think NFI?
Now, if you say that it's a tier of a federation, as it were, then why would the federal government be the one that will make laws that will guide it?
Just to be clear, are you saying the NFIU didn't have the propriety to make that kind of guideline?
Listen, making guideline is for administrative convenience for purposes of. Because if you check, ultimately, the fundamentals for NFIU is for financial transparency, money laundering thing.
So did they have the propriety, according from your view?
They can make, but not for you to specifically channel it to the local government. That's the point I'm making.
Okay, let's take this to Dr.
That's
Ode.
my take.
I'd like to, just before we go to Dr. Ode, I'd like to delve into some aspects of the law again, particularly because the court quoted section 162, subsection 7 and 8. But it would seem like the subsections contradict each other because one gives power to the National Assembly to determine the amount to be paid, while the other gives the power to the state. And what does the Constitution mean when it talks about amount standing to the credit?
Now that has to do with, you know, the issue of revenue allocation, derivation, and so on and so on. These are things that you look at. So now when money comes in, based on the local, for instance, you know, some areas in the Niger Delta are entitled to 13%. So, of course, the provision, when the entire this income, the National Assembly will make it law. This is what this we are entitled to. Now, that is clear. You know, that is what you have. So from there, you take your 13% and send it to that local government where, you know. So, and that is where it ends. So to now go further to say, local government, you cannot withdraw cash. You cannot, your cash limit for a day is 500,000, with all due respect. I feel, as an institution,
but when you have so many hurdles,
because local government is an institution.
Unwieldy?
You said what?
When you have so many hurdles to cross before you access the funds, isn't it unwieldy for the local government?
That's why it will not be able to work function properly.
Okay.
The only problem is that, yes, it has been abused, the way the governors have been going about. When you have look, the truth is that most of the people we have as governors and so on are not patriotic men.
Okay, Mr. Mary, we need to go to Abuja now. Dr. Ode, if we leave them to talk constitution, they can go on and on. This is what they do, essentially. But I'd like you to close on this question I asked Comrade Olatunji earlier about what the NGF chairman, Governor Fahimi, and I keep referring to him because he's spoken about this. He called this surreptitious unitarism, and that's for him, essentially weakening the states at the expense of the federal. When essentially, in any case, they say that the local governments are a creation of the state. So what do you think, at least according regards to what he said, surreptitious unitarism?
Let's look at the powers that are given to governors. The powers are not for themselves, to use for themselves. The powers are for governance, for the purpose of governance. And so I would have expected them to be in support of anything that makes governance easier. It's not about surreptitious unitarism. It's about what do we need to make the work go on. The NFIU was reacting to the incessant cases of abuse of the funds of local governments. Should they sit back and just watch this happen? The Constitution doesn't protect the funds, and so they needed to come in and do that. It's like any other aspect of life in the country. And if we have a national agency, a federal agency that has authority over that area or that has oversight over that area, they should make a law that ensures that there's sanity if the Constitution doesn't provide to it. I really don't see why the governors are so alarmed by this, because the purpose of their being there is to govern for the people. So why are they so concerned about having access to the local government funds? The NFIU directive doesn't say that the local government funds cannot be used by the tier of government for which it is meant. That is the purpose of the funds, for the local governments to use the funds. So why are the governors challenged by this NFIU guideline? Right. It's quite suspicious.
And I think that's a great place to land. Clearly, this is not the end of the conversation, but I would like to thank you for your interventions. We've been speaking with Dr. Adia Ode, who is the convener, Democracy Vanguard, joins us from our Abuja studio, as well as Comrade Ambali Olatunji, who is the National President, National Union of Local Government Employees, NALGE. And right here in our studio, Mr. Matthias Ameribe, a constitutional lawyer. Gentlemen and lady, thank you so much for your time, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you.
The third force, we're hearing that again. It's been in the works for some time now, but what exactly is this one about? The NC Front, in conversation with other groups, came up with that statement. We're trying to look deeper into this. The elections is just, what, 9 months away. And this morning, we're joined by someone who is in the know, has been at the forefront of this for quite some time. Professor Pat Autonomy is also the convener of the Big Tent. He joins us via Zoom from Victoria Island here in Lagos. Prof, thank you for joining us on the program. You also, in that statement, you also named as one of the leaders of this third force in courts. But tell us, what are the parties involved in this? Because that statement mentioned 7 political parties, and we've seen some statements by some political parties saying, well, we're not a part of this. So let's clear that one out of the way first. What are the parties involved? We know about the Labour Party and a few others, but tell us.
Well, thank you so very much. I'm glad to join you and to clarify some issues. This is a process thing that's been going on literally for years. As you know, one of the big challenges with Nigerian democracy is that access has been literally blocked for most Nigerians. Access to participate has been blocked by capture of 2 owned parties that are essentially one. I mean, I know a lot about how both parties started. And it is an enterprise cornered by some people. And so they choose who they let in, who they let out, and frustrate democracy. And so we have been at the business of how to make Nigeria's democracy space a little more open by building an alternative. And this engagement on how an alternative can emerge has gone through, if you will, iterations. Now, where we have arrived at is that after the last elections, it was clear to us that one of the reasons that Nigerians reluctantly turn to these 2 parties, even when they want to reject them completely, is that they feel that the system is such that these so-called other parties do not have, if you will, what they call structure, you know. That means, look, elections in Nigeria are so typically manipulated that if you didn't have your own person in a polling booth somewhere in the boondoggles, if you will, on election day, they will just give you any number of votes they want to give you and do as they please. Even if you had agents that are weak, they would bribe your agents and write as they want to. Now, to break that, it was important to find within these alternative party groupings a very clear, if you will, pattern that can have people everywhere. And so some of us began to say to ourselves, it is critical for this alternative track to be much more than a political party. Should be social movements that are represented around the country, that with roots everywhere. And then very, very importantly, we began to think about the labor movement, because the labor movement is a national spread organization. And I led a team to go and make a presentation to the National Working Committee of the Nigerian Labor NLC, Labour Congress, about 2 years or so ago. And progressively, we've worked up to a point where Labour has very wholeheartedly become part of this initiative. In the last year, the meetings have taken place majorly at the head office of the Nigeria Labour Congress. And we have had amongst those who have participated in those meetings, besides other social movements, we have had the ADC has participated in those movements. We have, of course, now had the Labour Party more reincorporated into the labor movement as part of that movement.
we've had, I mean, some of the meetings which took place in Lagos, for example, on my birthday in February here, Senator Dan Sadao of MNR, even Senator Kwankwaso, we had meetings here in Lagos, and we've had several meetings with them too. So it's a moving train, as we call it, and people join as we go along. The idea is to build a big tent that holds everybody who wants to see a new Nigeria.
Well, Prof, just to be clear, pardon me, Prof, just to be clear, so when that statement says 7 allied parties, you've mentioned Labour Party, you've mentioned NRM, and I think the ADC. That is 3. So what are the other parties?
SDP was present at the meetings.
SDP?
SDP was present at the meetings. We've had meetings with, you know, the acronyms are so many, I can't remember all of them off of my head. I think there's an APM, yeah, APM, we've had meetings with. So the idea is, and again, if you want to go to social movements, the Rebuild Nigeria Initiative, the RMP, all these movements have been part of this Congress of Nigerian Professionals, you know, the New Fabian Society. All of these movements have been present at these meetings and have signed off or still. PRP, by the way, has been at these meetings. We have had, some of them have been.
I'm sorry.
We've had Professor.
Okay, you can land on that point, Prof.
Yes, we've had Professor Atahiru Jega at those meetings. We have had the chairman, Pala Lubelo, at the meetings. Now, the nature of the tent is such that there is a fusion process, that is a social movement fusing into some existing party, and then there is the alliance part of it. I mean, PRP, for example, has consistently said, because of their legacy and all of that, they'd like to be part of an alliance, you know, not a fusion or merger. Unless everybody wanted to merge into PRP, they would be part of an alliance.
Okay, 2 quick questions.
In this alliance, yes.
2 quick questions, pardon me. Because of time, there's so much people want to know about this, you know, third force, as it were. So you say that, yes, indeed, there are 7 allied parties. Am I right?
Sorry, yes, allied parties, yes.
Okay, so the fact that they attended meetings, does that mean they are actually on board? Because, I mean, the front pages today say SDP, ADC, APM dissociate themselves from merger. So it will look like, yes, maybe they were at the meeting, but they're not on board.
That's where the confusion is coming from, the merger. From the very beginning, even on the 6th of February, the point was made that given the INEC timetable, a merger is implausible. Okay? So, in fact, it was Senator Dan Sadao who defined what was possible, given the realities of that meeting. What was suggested was fusion and then alliance. And Professor Jega can make the point that he has consistently said what is most probable, especially for PRP, is an alliance, an electoral alliance, which has happened before in Nigeria. That's what brought us to the 1999 election, after Dr. Ogbonnaya, for example, essentially allowed a process that brought Chief Olufalaye together with Alhaji Umaru Shinkafi to go up against General Obasanjo and Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. So it is not a new thing. It is, and it's how Kenya tried to fix its political opposition and how Zambia got an opposition elected. So that process is what is ongoing. The critical thing is that there are alternative parties working together to be able to present an alternative track.
Would you define the outlook of this alliance, specifically now, if we were to go to the polls and you were to present a candidate, which party would you be adopting as the party bearing the image of this alliance?
The way the conversation has gone, is for the parties to come together and pick, first of all, a college. And that's critical in the difference we're trying to make here. We're looking at collegial leadership. Part of the problem with Nigeria is we've got this one-man redeemer, messiah complex mindset. We say, let's hold a college accountable. And if from the various cooperating, collaborating parties, we have a college of leaders, and we collectively hold them accountable for how Nigeria travels. Because of the nature of the electoral process, only one of them will come forward as president. Now, the idea is for us to then determine that one person that goes forward from this college, but that one person must function as part of this college and be collectively accountable to the Nigerian people through this college in terms of how Nigeria gets administered going forward. Now, this conversation has taken place regularly. In fact, we tried this in 2011, and I can say this very clearly. We're having meetings in Abuja, and all the candidates of the major opposition parties, including General Buhari in CPC, Nuhu Ribadu and Fola Adiola. I was coordinating those meetings. They took place in a hotel in Maitama called Protea. Chifon Falae and I principally were involved in that process. And we were making headway. Senator Ibrahim Shekarau, coming from the AMPP, were all part of this. We met almost daily for a couple of weeks. Unfortunately, just a few days before the elections, when we were going to come forward with the candidate, that alliance was broken by the incumbent president, who failed to show up. So it is not new in Nigerian politics, and it is something that is necessary if we're going to save our country.
Well, the question Bukola asked you, Prof, if you don't mind responding to it, is since it's an alliance, what political platform will be the face of this alliance?
It will be the platform on, well, the base platform, because Labour is part of it, and, the thrust is flavoring Labour. The Labour Party is seen as part of the basement. For a long time in the conversation, the basement party was the ADC. That was considered the basement party. But as Labour came in to provide the hooks that Labour can provide, being nationally spread and engaged, people, and I can mention names like Femi Falana, argue that it will ideologically work through if a Labour Party was a platform party that Labour comes in through. But it does not mean that somebody who comes from ADC cannot be the presidential candidate, or that somebody who comes from NMR cannot be the presidential party candidate. So it is a function of who comes through as the choice of the college for their name to go forward that will determine the party flag that is going to be flown at the elections.
So this loose alliance presenting Labour as the image of the party, is it recognized? Is it legal under the new Electoral Act?
Yeah, absolutely legal. Like I say, it's been done before here in Nigeria, and the person who in those meetings consistently spoke to that as the most feasible of the options ran INEC himself, Professor Tahiru Jega.
So you're adopting Labour Party, but all the other parties under the alliance maintain their identity. That's the point.
Yes, some of the parties will maintain their identity. Some chose. I can make the point here that in the early days of the conversation, Senator Dan Sadao of MNR was pretty convinced that he could work together with ADC almost like a quasi-merger situation. So the different levels of fusions and alignments that make up this big tent, from which we hope just one person will eventually provide the leadership for this college that should provide a redeeming platform for Nigeria.
I was waiting for you to provide clarity on which party would bear the image of the alliance, which is why some have said that why the adoption of the Labour Party, which has a history of factionalism, dormancy most of the time, and then during the elections, it comes out as a beautiful bride to launder the interests of politicians who had failed, you know, to achieve their aspiration in other parties.
Well, the Labour movement says it has literally called back the Labour Party, and that the new image of the Labour Party is the Labour movement. And I have enough confidence in their judgment to say that's something that is doable. The only thing that you cannot do is essentially prevent people from acting in their interests, which they will tend to do, but it is possible to reprogram. In fact, it is easier to reprogram when there isn't a steady course of commitment. So I believe that the Labour movement says to us, and most of our meetings have been with the Labour movement. In fact, I had the privilege of speaking to the 36 political commissions of the Nigerian Labour Congress from the 36 states of the Federation in Abuja a few weeks ago. And the TUC, Trade Union Congress, we've also had conversations with, and they show a commitment to this process. It is important to recognize that the base value that the labor movement centrally brings to this is that it takes away this question about structure, because everybody knows that the labor movement is everywhere. And if that is structure, committed people, because they are part of the organizational frame, being available everywhere, just completely takes away the fear Nigerians have of saying, well, great initiative, but do they have structure? Yes, there is structure now. And it's not just labor. There are a variety of movements that are fusing into this, that on their own have national spread. They were not political parties, but they are committed to seeing Nigeria move in a direction superior to where it is today. In fact, there are many of them that are scared that if we don't do this, we may be foregoing the chance to save this country for our children and their children after them. And so this is a matter of desperation. It's a Hail Mary pass being tossed here, because you need to free Nigeria from where it is right now if there's going to be a next generation that, you know, makes progress.
Well, Prof, just a quick clarification, something that you mentioned earlier when in responding to Bukola's question, you said, well, the alliance will fly the flag of the Labour Party, but it doesn't mean that an ADC candidate cannot be fielded. Is that to say, and of course you also said it's a loose alliance. So I'm wondering, just to be clear, is that to say that whoever comes on from this alliance will fly only the party of the Labour Party, or they can still fly their individual parties?
They can fly their individual party flag, but everybody queues behind them from in the alliance. Because just the logistic of switching from party to party may not be easy. So whatever party flag that comes through was flying, got nominated under, can go forward, but the campaign, everybody will say, this is the person from the big tent. This is the person from, I don't like the third force usage, but media loves it, from the third force. And
well, Prof,
the Nigerian people can come on board.
Well, the third force term was actually used in the statement released by the NC Front. So, I mean, we're not the ones that adopted it. So it was something you put out there first.
People who put out the statement, I mean, we've had this conversation many times, but this is a peculiar personal thing for me, so it's not a problem. Okay. Whenever they use third force, I go, oh dear, okay. Because you know why? I say there isn't a first force, second force, and then a third force. No, there is one political bloc in Nigeria called APC-PDP. They're one party. I mean, who is of AP. He was governor. If you go to PDP, you can see how they all go back and forth. So
right.
it's one political group.
It
so
would
the
seem
alternative
as though
group is how I prefer to see it.
Okay, it will seem as though, now I'm referring, by the way, to the statement released by NC Front, signed by Ms. Bilkis Bello. And it clearly states in that statement that Labour Party has been adopted. But it looks like, first, you are not really on the same page with that statement. It looks like that. Or there's been a backlash after that statement said, LP, the Labour Party, is the flag we want everybody to come under. Am I right?
No, I don't think so. I think it's in the nature of the evolution of these things. Here, it has to be clear that a significant influence of the labor movement and the passion to have the Labour Party reincorporated into the labor movement. And there were convergences. Look, part of how we started these conversations was by creating, out of the concerned professionals, what we called the New Fabian Society. Who are the New Fabians? If you go back historically to how the Fabian Society started and changed because of the travel of the United Kingdom, you will see how a group of intellectuals meeting during laissez-faire Britain in the 1790s to see how the terrible conditions of industrial revolution could pay more attention to the people, be more people-based, and they looked at history and a Roman general who confronted the greatest army of the time, Hannibal. And obviously there was no way Hannibal was not going to just crush Rome.
Okay.
But this general, whose name was Quintus Fabius Maximus, from where they took their name, Fabian Fabius, used a strategy that they thought they should adopt. And that led to the founding of the London School of Economics and the Labour Party in the UK. The convergence of thinking between the New Fabians of the concerned professionals and the fact that Labour had become passionate about playing a direct role led to this process.
Now, this process, just as you have said, I mean, having, trying to give us some background, a quick one here now. How do you respond to those who say this idea is coming a little too late in the day? It's less than 1 year to the general elections.
I'm sorry, you were breaking up a little, so I didn't quite hear you.
I said, how do you respond to those who think this idea, this big tent, this third force coalition, whatever it is, whichever one you prefer, Prof, is coming a little too late in the day because it's less than 1 year to the general elections?
Hey, clearly not at all, at all. I'll give you the reasons why it is not late. In fact, it's too early for what we need to achieve. It is not late because, one, the process has been ongoing. It didn't start today. It's gone on for years. Just trying to get it right. I mean, check how these things evolve with Ford in Kenya and all of that. So that's one. It's not coming late from part of history. Second, Nigeria is in such a state. We are near collapse as a country. In fact, that Nigerians are tolerating APC and PDP having a convention is a mark of the extreme patience of the Nigerian people. Look, the focus of this big tent is on power, production, and people. If you live in Nigeria, I don't know if you live in Nigeria, I suspect you do, but quality of life has been so miserable. I mean, yesterday, my house in Ikoyi had power for 2 or 3 hours. That's probably the longest we've had power in any given day in months. Something as basic as electricity. Look, Al-Hassan Ouattara has fixed it in Côte d'Ivoire. Look at how Vietnam fixed it after their terrible, terrible war. Just look at how people have dealt with power around the place, how UAE built its capacity, number of China's. And between PDP and APC, in 20-something years, we've just made it worse. Why? Power is not rocket science. What has caused it is greed,
Right.
poor capacity of management, and distance from the people. If these people care about people, they will know the kind of misery that they're generating people by the way the electric power system in this country runs.
Well,
and they
Prof,
can make one simple decision
we
that
have
will
to
fix it.
We have to run now, Prof, but let me put in this final question. And this is not the first time we've heard of a third force. We saw that pre-2019. In fact, there was that pact, as it were, the coming together of presidential aspirants. It fell through. So you might not understand if Nigerians are a little bit lethargic in approaching this new formation. But on a final note, it's been said that, well, there might be a spillover from the major parties, the APC, PDP, in the light of what's going on inside. In fact, that statement said that there might be an implosion within those parties. Would you be willing to work with maybe frontliners or those who may have lost out in the APC or PDP?
It's not really a matter of losing out. There are many good people in APC and PDP who can't get their voices out there. In fact, we had within those two parties, the RPDP and RAPC, the righteous, as some people call it, APC, righteous PDP. Unfortunately, the first fellow who was leading the RPC seems to have left the PDP and moved to another party. But yes, there'll be a welcoming into the Big Ten. That's why there'll be a welcoming of people who want really to change Nigeria, who are committed to politics as meant. Well, you know, really seriously,
we have to run.
We're committed to politics.
Pardon me, we're even having challenges with the connection, but I think the question has been answered that yes, indeed, you're willing to work with whoever as far as they have the interests of the nation at heart. But I'd like to thank you so much, Professor Autonomy. Clearly, this is an ongoing conversation. He's a convener of the Big Tent and one of the leaders of, what is it called, the third force now, or an emerging force, as they said. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Good pleasure.
Okay. Let's run through those messages right quick that you have sent as contribution to this program. Olagunjo Oladele says, a catchy phrase like third party force to build a competitive opposition is an approach in the very best of political rhetoric. The voting culture in Nigeria is the problem. It's all money politics which determines the outcome. How are they planning to finance it? Well, Prof, you're going to have to answer that question some other time.
Speaking of profs, this next one is from Prof. Monica Inakena, who says, this is an important era in an emerging new Nigeria. Voters shouldn't be assurant, but ensure that only people who have the capacity to fix our security challenges, fix our beleaguered economy, and generate employment opportunities are voted for.
And local government autonomy is uppermost in the mind of Badung Joshua. He says, on that issue, we already have the federal, state, and local government with the chairman at the helm of affairs. So the governors want the chairman to be just figureheads while they do their jobs for them when it comes to finance.
So there you go. In case you're wondering what disorient means, it's essentially greedy or hungry. So voters should not be greedy or hungry, from Professor Inakena's tweet. Well, that's been the show for today, everyone. It's been a pleasure having you. Thank you for watching. I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
Thank you for watching. I'm Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.